In the most recent blog post, Jagex proposed a whole list of changes to the bosses within TOA. Something important to remember about these changes is that they are not going to be pulled. None of these have been finalized yet, and Jagex is still taking feedback from the community, but at the end of the day, they're going to do what they believe is right for the game. The community has seemingly been quite divided on these changes, two in particular, and there is seemingly no answer to please everyone. What a surprise. I'll try to look at these changes through the lens of players of all levels, but it can oftentimes be difficult to do so. Let's have an open discussion about these changes with the intent to try and find the best solution for the long-term health of the game. Jagex feels that the Baba fight is currently pretty dull, and they're looking to change the pacing of the fight a little to make the core experience more engaging. This is how they're proposing to do that. Baba will no longer do damage through prayer unless Quiet Prayers is activated. Baboons that spawn will die after one attack from any weapon, but fewer of them will spawn. Jungle Japes would now drop more bananas on death to account for the reduced number of baboons. Damage taken from Baba's rock throw attack would be fully shifted onto anything you can split the damage with, like the sarcophagus, boulders, and even baboons. They hope that these changes make the fight feel more fair and make engaging with the mechanics feel more rewarding. Now, here are my thoughts on the changes. The obvious odd one out here is Baba's damage through prayer. This would completely negate the need to red X at all invocation levels, assuming no Quiet Prayers, and in my opinion, make the room too easy for a raid boss. I think the real problem here is that Baba is a flawed boss at its core, and this proposed change is just exposing that. The main difficult mechanic of the boss is that it smacks you for 20s through your prayer. If they're set on making Baba do no damage through prayer, I think they need to rework the mechanics of the boss, as it would not accomplish their goals otherwise. Now, I don't really see them doing that, so I think the simplest change is to just further reduce the amount of chip damage that Baba does rather than remove it entirely. This would allow players to more easily kill the boss without red X, but still maintain the need for it in higher invocations. As it stands, though flawed, Baba does have a form of progression as you increase the raid level. Up until 400 or so, you'll typically just do the boss as intended and drink brews or heal when needed. After this, people typically learn the standard red X with a potion or the crystal. Then you can further progress by learning to red X without a potion, which saves a small amount of time in solos, but can be life-saving in team raids. Finally, the most advanced Baba strategy is 5-1. This allows you to continue red Xing Baba without losing any ticks. Normal red X methods are 6 tick cycles, causing you to lose over 16% DPS, though this does come at the cost of taking the occasional hit. With no damage through prayer, there would be no progression as you increase the raid level. And the strategies you use from 300 invocation to 500 invocation would be exactly the same. Pray melee and run from rock to rock. I think the lack of progression in strategy as you increase the raid level is the inherent problem with the zero chip damage change. The other changes they're suggesting seem to be okay. One hitting the monkeys makes them nice to get death charge from, though you can already get death charge by tagging them with any weapon and then waiting for them to die to boulders. Having the damage from the rock throw attack fully be shifted to whatever you're standing beside is kind of whatever in my opinion, as it's usually not a lot of damage. Unless you're standing beside a sarcophagus, then this is actually pretty significant. I would hope that if they did go through with a zero damage Baba change, they would make the sarcophagus one hit from a boulder because otherwise you could literally AFK beside one for an entire phase with a Blood Fury. At Kefrey, they're looking to lower the magic defense of the melee scarab, as well as make the defense levels of both scarabs no longer scale with invocation level. They're also looking to make the arcane scarab guaranteed to move after a certain number of attacks, regardless if those attacks hit or not. I think these are all welcome changes and would be fine to add. Killing the melee scarab with a mage weapon other than a shadow is pretty awful, so this is nice to see. The changes to the arcane are also quite nice, since this was just straight up a DPS check and could cause massive unavoidable damage. Neither of these changes really affect any high skill strategies and are pretty much just quality of life changes for everyone doing the raid. I do think it's odd that out of everything there's no mention of medic, probably the most hated invocation in the whole raid. It also seems like they just don't want to fix the bone dagger at Kefrey and solos. Surely they know about this bug by now, and not including it in this blog likely shows their disinterest in changing it. The only thing they would like to change as a block is making waves no longer push the player back, but having them deal 30% more damage to compensate. This is an interesting change. It's nice because you can no longer basically get insta-killed by a wave from being pushed into acid after, though it does create a new wave skip where you actually just do nothing and tank 35 damage. This also means that the lake that they have around Zabak is now just impossible to be pushed into, and it's just there for looks, I guess. They're looking to make quite a few changes to Akka. Here's everything they have in mind. Protection prayers will now be more effective against Akka, meaning less chip damage. Special attacks will now occur every 7 Akka attacks rather than every 6. Akka will now pray against only the style that he is attacking with, meaning you can attack Akka with 2 styles at any given time. The number of orbs during Akka's enrage phase will be reduced. Akka's stat drain effect now only affects combat skills. Who cares? The Stay Vigilant invocation is getting a rework as well. Akka will now swap styles whenever he does a special attack. Akka will use special attacks more often, though this will not be a change to current Akka since they're looking to make specials happen slightly less often without Stay Vigilant turned on. Whenever Akka swaps styles, he will maintain the current pattern of melee ranged mage. This is relevant since he's only going to pray against one style. With all of these changes, Jagex is looking to make the fight feel more approachable overall. I think they've done a decent job at that, but I question the need for nerfs to Akka in the first place, as it is a difficult but rewarding boss fight. It seems like they're trying to force you to butterfly less by guaranteeing that Akka switches styles every time you fight him. I think the goal here is to try and make the fight a bit more predictable and to give players time to be ready to switch their gear. I believe the problem with Akka swapping every time he does a special is similar to the problem I had in Baba. This would, though not to the same extent as in Baba, remove the progression and strategies used to complete the room. It's not that you have to necessarily butterfly differently as the raid gets harder, but there's just a lot of depth to butterflying perfectly without missing ticks. And it can take a long time to learn everything, and I believe that can be rewarding and fun gameplay. When you aren't butterflying, you're just standing there hitting the boss while he does unavoidable chip damage to you. There isn't that much going on. Thankfully, this wouldn't entirely phase out butterflying. It would instead just make it impossible to do a full Akka kill without him swapping styles. There's another issue with Akka guaranteeing that he swaps styles on a special attack. This would be a pretty significant increase to the length of the room, especially with the double trouble on. Currently, Akka can only do a special every 60 seconds if you never get hit. If Akka's attacking you, he'll do a special every 6 attacks, which is about every 20 seconds or so. The way the room would go if he had a guaranteed chance to swap would be like this. You'd butterfly for 1 minute, and then he would do a special and swap styles. After the special, he would start ranging you, and then about 20 seconds later, another special would happen. Then after that special, he would mage you, and 20 seconds later, another special would happen. Then you can finally butterfly for 60 seconds again before this cycle repeats. And keep in mind that every time he does a special, it's a 10 to 15 second addition to the fight that doesn't progress the fight at all, assuming shadows aren't attackable. If they're going to make Akka instantly swap on specials, they should give you some way for you to continue progressing the fight during the special. Particularly the memory special is what I'm talking about here. Maybe let you attack the shadows during a special, even when they haven't spawned. Or maybe do guaranteed damage to Akka upon completing the memory puzzle damageless, similar to how P3 Warden skulls work by damaging Warden when you kill all skulls in time. Now, not all is bad with these changes. If Akka only prays against one style at a time, this would allow you to butterfly Akka with a ranged weapon, still only during the melee phase. I think this is a good change and gives those without a shadow a method to learn that rewards good play. Reducing the total number of orbs in the final phase is an okay change. I've always thought it was a bit odd that 350 invocation and 600 invocation, this phase was basically the exact same difficulty. Even prior to this blog, I thought it would make sense to have a separate invocation for the diagonal orbs during this phase. Or maybe they could even make the baseline variant reduced orbs and then add an invocation that makes it as it is now. Whatever they do, I don't think this change is a huge deal. Jagex's goal with the puzzle room changes is to smooth them out a little and have you speeding through them like never before. They would also like to reduce variance a bit in team play. So here are the changes. For the monkey puzzle, Cursed Baboons and Baboon Shamans will always take max damage from range attacks. Their HP will be increased a bit to compensate for this. 2 waves of monkeys will be removed. They don't mention which 2 waves though. For the Zabak puzzle, the amount of water required will no longer scale linearly with the number of players. This means that in teams, not every player is required to grab 2 full jugs of water to complete the room. And for the Akka puzzle, the hit points on the obelisk will be slightly reduced so that 1-downs won't require boosting above 99 mining. That's their words. Now, I'll just start out by saying it is a little odd to me that they made changes to every puzzle other than the Kefrey puzzle, since this one is, in my opinion, the most boring of them all and is particularly bad without the TOA plugin. I think the changes to the monkey puzzle are fine. It looks like they're attempting to make the room time be a bit more in line with the other puzzles. Depending on which 2 waves are removed, that could be a pretty big time save right there. The Zabak puzzle change is also fine. Seems nice for those trying to learn the room with friends. The Akka change is a little bit confusing to me as their wording in this section makes it seem like they think most players aren't 1-downing the puzzle unless they have 99 mining, but you really only need 85 mining and to click as early as possible to mine for a bit longer. Maybe they're trying to appeal to players who aren't using the TOA plugin. Either way, I think lowering the mining requirement to 1 down is fine. You would also likely still save some time by 1-ticking the puzzle. There are a few miscellaneous changes they're looking to make. These changes include being able to deposit any items into the deposit pot beside the spirit. Any drained stats will be restored at the end of the boss fight. Smelling salts will reapply their boost as they expire. The deposit pot change is quite nice, though I don't think it'll really affect any of my current runs. Not much to say about the other changes, nice QL I guess. Jagex also had a lot to say about loot changes within TOA. They believe the loot here is already problematic and don't want to hold off on making the raid better because they're apprehensive about making changes to the loot. They go on to say that they believe that on release, they received a lot of feedback around higher raid levels not feeling very worthwhile, but believe they overcorrected on this matter. They mentioned the absurdity of having one of the best melee weapons in the game be below 10 mil, and one of the best rings below 2 mil. Though, as I'm making this, the Fang is now 28 mil and the Lightbearer is 5.9 mil, seemingly due to this blog. They agree that they've waited far too long to make changes to the TOA drop table, but would still like to move forward with something. They're looking for more community feedback, but mentioned potentially swapping the weighting of the Fang and Lightbearer with the Ward, or reducing some loot scaling at higher raid levels, or even just blanket reducing purple chance for all raid levels. They're still trying to figure out exactly what they want to do. This topic could be a whole video on its own, and I honestly don't know what the best solution is here. I do think swapping the weighting of the Fang at Lightbearer with the Ward is a good place to start though. I'm glad Jagex is seemingly taking their time with this change and open to all sorts of feedback from the community. Overall, I think the blog was great, but needs some minor tweaks to reach their intended goals. Let me know what you thought about the blog down below, as I'm sure a lot of you have input on this as well. If you made it this far, thank you, and I appreciate you. And if you haven't already, follow me on Twitch to catch me live, subscribe to the Clips channel for less edited highlights from my stream, and join my Discord. Everything will be linked in the description below.
Shadow? Wait. I say.